Hey everybody, it's Josh from the Underground Garage. I just picked up a new car, new to me anyway. This is a 2008 Pontiac G8 and it needs front brakes pretty bad. So I'm going to do that, just a quick how-to, real basic stuff on how to do the brakes on this car. Alright, so this car's got these weird little covers over the lug nuts. On most cars they unscrew. On these Pontiac G8s they pop off, they're not threaded. So if you try to unscrew them, you'll break them. I'm just going to replace the rotors and the pads. I'm not going to do the calipers. So the first thing we need to do is get the caliper out of the way. There's some 12mm bolts here in the back that'll let that come out of there. There's also a built-in nut in the caliper right here. It's 18mm. You need to hold that while you try to unscrew the bolts, or the nut will just spin and the bolts will never come out. A lot of guys will just let the caliper hang by the brake line. I'm guilty of that. You really shouldn't do that. It can put some weird stress on the brake line and may cause problems down the road. And the pads just kind of pop out of here. This one's in really good shape. There's a lot of pad life left there, but when I touch the brakes, the steering wheel shakes, so the rotors are warped, so that's why we're doing this. Next, we'll pull out these little shims. There's little spring-loaded clips that hold the pads in there. They also help keep everything quiet. Your new brake pads should come with some of these. You really shouldn't reuse them. I'm guilty of it. I've reused them, but you really shouldn't. Next thing we gotta do is get this caliper bracket off. There's two 18mm bolts in the back. Caliper brackets out of the way. Great time to clean these up and do some high temp paint if that's something you want to do. Then the rotor just pulls off. It's a good time to grab the wheel bearing, this wheel hub, and just kind of jiggle it and see if there's any slop or any play in it at all. So it shouldn't wiggle at all, it should just turn. So this one's good. Stick our new rotor on there, and then I'm just going to thread a lug nut on hand tight to hold the rotor on. When the manufacturer makes the rotors, they put some juice on the rotor to keep it from rusting in the box. You got to get that juice off of there before you put your brakes together. I've heard the correct procedure is to actually take the entire rotor and dunk it in a bucket of purple powered degreaser or something like that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use some brake clean on the front and the back of the rotor and get everything off of it, but dunking it may be a better way to go. Alright, we put our caliper bracket back on now. The caliper bracket bolts should be torqued. A lot of guys will slam them down with the impact gun or tighten them down. Those are absolutely critical to the braking system. If those bolts back out or fail in some way, you're not going to be able to stop the car. To get the new pads in there, you're going to take one of the caliper bolts, the bottom one, and install it. Just put the bolt in 3 or 4 threads, just enough to hold the caliper right there. Take our new shims, install them in the bracket. And then the brake pads came with this little bit of synthetic lubricant. Just want to put a little bit in the channel. on these clips, and that's going to help you stay quiet. For the most part, your brake pads are going to be identical. One's going to have a little squeal tab on it, or maybe they all will, but on this application, one's got this little tab. So as the pad wears out, as this material goes away, this little tab will touch the rotor and it will squeak, and that'll let you know it's time to change the pads again. Also, on this particular car, the squeal tab, it goes in the back. That's very common. Almost every car I've ever done, the squeal tabs go in the back. On this car, the pad that goes in the back has 2 rivets in the middle. The pad that goes in the front has the rivets on the outside, so they won't install incorrectly. You won't be able to get the caliper on. So you need to pay attention to the rivet orientation and where the squeal tab goes. And they just sit in those channels. This one's got a little relief tab I got to push up with a screwdriver. Hold on. When you go to put your caliper back on, it's not going to want to fit. The new brakes are going to be too wide. These 2 circles right here are the brake pistons. They actually come out of there and squeeze these pads. That's what stops the car. So what you can do, get a pair of pliers or channel locks, grab this bottom one and squeeze it, and it'll drop back into the caliper. So then you can get your bottom one on there. You're going to notice when you squeeze the bottom piston, the top piston's going to come out. So it still won't install, but the bottom one is in place. So we can grab the top one now with our pliers and collapse that one. And the bottom one won't squish out because it's up against the brakes. Put our top caliper bolt back in. Do the same thing on the bottom one. And that's it. Put the wheel back on, you're ready to go. Don't leave your strap in there, that'll make a mess. And don't leave your light in there, that'll make a mess. Always start them by hand, don't start them with the impact gun. If you cross thread it, then you're done. You're going to end up replacing the stud. And the last thing we'll do, we'll set it on the ground and we'll torque the wheels down. Just tighten them down in a crisscross pattern. That's another good practice to get into. Once you get it down on the ground, put it in park, crank it up, and pump the brakes a half a dozen times or so. Get the brakes pumped up, make sure they're working before you just jump in there and fire into your neighbor's yard or something. So, pretty basic job, not much to that one. Hopefully we'll do some more G8 videos. There's an update on the twin turbo Mustang, that's coming. But that's all I got for now. Appreciate you guys watching, thanks.